Hi Rob, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for talking to me about
Absolutely.
the Evil Divide,
My
Death
pleasure.
Angel. Fantastic new album. So, Rob, how would you describe or how would you define the Evil Divide to someone who doesn't know the album or Death Angel in general?
Well, okay, I could say it's our latest album. It's our 8th studio album. It's definitely a very it's very timely album as far as conceptually with events in the world, situations in the world, as well as situations in our personal world. It's kind of always like that with our albums. We're reflecting what we're going through personally in a more of an inside way that we understand what we're talking about in there, and at the same time something that can be comprehended and where most people can also put their story to it or see their meaning for it, maybe in the same way, maybe in a different way, but definitely very intense album for us.
Sure.
Very.
Well, and one can hear that, definitely. I read that you once said initially the Evil Divide was going to be a part 3 of a trilogy, but went on to become its own monster. What are the characteristics that set the Evil Divide apart from part 1 and 2, let's say?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, yes, we're intending that to be a trilogy in that way, and as it took its own shape, it just wasn't conceptually connecting to what we were expressing on Relentless Retribution and The Dream Calls for Blood, which those two albums are a bit more angry and filled with, like, well, what the album titles, revenge, like a revengeful, or like a fighting back against. We just had a lot of things coming against us and coming up down on us from a lot of different angles during those two albums, and we were just expressing ourselves as we were getting through these obstacles that were just really, really, like, making us angry and feeling dark and stuff. So fortunately, by the time we were writing The Evil Divide, we had come through some of these things now. So we were beyond it already. We'd gone through that fire and felt okay now about those things. So with that in mind, like, we didn't really have this, we wanted to express where we were coming from now, which was not in the same kind of, I mean, don't get me wrong, we're still pissed off about a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. But it just seemed like that was enough of that feeling, like it was going to be too much doing it for the third time around. And quite honestly, we really peaked out on that on The Dream Calls for Blood. To me, that album is like the most, I could really feel the darkness and the intense aggression that we were getting to the maximum on that album.
I agree.
So it was like, it was enough of that. We had enough of other, like, intense energy to come from, but sort of in a more positive way where we were now, our lives had come to by that point. So it was no use in enforcing the issue of the third part of that when it just wasn't naturally. Luckily for us, we were past that part already for our lives, so we wanted to express where we were coming from now, which was from a little bit more positive outlook. Sure. That's the best way I can explain it.
Beautifully said, actually, yeah. And so we just mentioned it could have been a trilogy, but it is definitely a trilogy from the point of view that it's the same band with the same producer, same label.
Yes, absolutely.
So, from a philosophical point of view, how did you manage to keep that team this tight for many years?
I'd say well, for one thing, I mean, we're fortunate enough that we are having a good relationship with each other, and the players, the people in place are the right people that is respectfully working with one another, and so there's a lot of love there. So this is the foundation of the love and respect we have for one another is absolutely the glue and the main foundation of everything. And that just happened to be, I mean, by fortunate, these are the people that they are. But on the other hand, the other half of it is also that we are taking care of that. Like, we're talking about it all the time and discussing that, exactly that, and being aware of it, and also just through time and getting older and stuff, and experiencing so many different things, and experiencing coming apart with people, relationships coming apart, and sometimes back together again, and coming apart again. And I guess it's just learning from your experiences and your mistakes, and try to make sure it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen like that in the future. So now, I guess, being older and a bit wiser from those experiences, now we can make this thing really work in a really nice, well-oiled machine where it seems to be continuing so far. So this is a great thing. Also, let me just add, you named same producer, same label, same players, band members, even in the same studio. So I mean, really, but it was nice because we had nice experiences before. So we use that as to where we could, now we get to work so much faster, because in this case, you eliminate the part where you're trying to get familiar with somebody or with some studio or something, and sometimes it takes time to get to know one another or to figure out what's going on. In this case, since we know all of that already, we just go immediately into being productive and creating. So I really like that. It's not to say that a new experience isn't good too, but we're having a good experience with it as it is, and so we felt like we'll keep the winning team going.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Perfect. Well, Rob, very interesting. I hope it's going to be a quadrilogy, if that's the right word.
Well, it still is a possibility of a plan to complete the trilogy from the other two albums. It depends where our lives go. There may be a way to do it whereby we're not in a really, where we can do it where we're not in a fucked part of life, and we'll be able to pull influences out into that concept. So it could be coming. There's no shortage of things that fucking pisses us off still. So
awesome. I like that.
There you go.
Well, Rob, again, thank you so much. It was very interesting.
Thank you, Sebastian.
All the best, and
Thank you.
hope to see you again.
Likewise.